Hey guys, what's going on? Or should I say, welcome, foolish mortals. It is I, Eli, back with another review video. And it's that time once again for me to review some Halloweenish films on the weekdays, and yeah. And that's right. You read the title. You know exactly what the first Halloweenish film it is that I'm reviewing. Yes. And finally, at long last, I've come around to reviewing a batch of these films. Classic Universal monster movies. And of course, have to start off with one of the very first, classic Universal monster films that technically started it all. Does that sound right? I mean, Universal Pictures, they were dipping their toes in a bit of horror, before this. Like, they had Hunchback of Notre Dame, and they had Phantom of the Opera, and I think a couple of others. But it wasn't until, when Universal Pictures, entering in the 1930s and coming out of that era of silent movies, and when sound movies were beginning, and back then they were fresh and new and such, and this being one of them. And from what I've read, this is what what really started and kicked off the horror genre. That's right, guys. I am finally reviewing from 1931, Dracula. Yes, Dracula from 1931. What can you say about, the original Dracula film? The one from 1931, the one that everybody remembers so well. Everybody has their favorite, Dracula film and such, and this being one of them, and as of now, yeah, this being one of my favorites. I mean, yeah, because, aside from, all the other, movie adaptations, based off of the book by the same name, this one stands out as being the best out of all of them. But no hard feelings on the other Dracula movies, yeah. And especially, whom betrayed Dracula in this is the superior, one and only Count Dracula. You know who I'm talking about, yeah. So, for me, I'm glad to have finally have watched the 1931 Dracula film and seen it in its glory fully, and there's really no other film like this one. Don't you think? And I'm pretty sure I'm right, because, yeah, the 1931 Dracula film, to me, is a masterpiece. Definitely, without a doubt, a movie masterpiece. Because one of the best horror genre movies, and like I said, where this technically kicked off the horror genre for sure, really, and just with great storytelling in this, and with great casting, and whom betrays the title character, and just how he would, be responsible for the superior look, how we vision and picture Count Dracula to this day. Yeah, it's amazing. I really enjoyed the 1931 Dracula film. Again, it did not disappoint for me. It was fantastic, a masterpiece of a film, and also the Count Dracula from this, of course, being one of the top villains in AFI's Heroes and Villains list. Yeah, just thought I'd mention that, yeah, because they're very important with film history, AFI. But, yeah, and, because I'm pretty sure, because he's really, the only, villain of the Universal monster films. I'm pretty sure, more than just him. I can think of, say, the creature from the Black Lagoon and so on, but anyways. Yeah, but just overall, I love the 1931 Dracula film. It's fantastic. Okay, so enough said. As always, for me, read the description / the story. The dashing, mysterious Count Dracula, after hypnotizing a British soldier, Renfield, into his mindless slave, travels to London and takes up residence in an old castle. Soon, Dracula begins to wreak havoc sucking the blood of young women and turning them into vampires. When he sets his sights on Mina, the daughter of a prominent doctor, vampire hunter Van Helsing is enlisted to put a stop to the Count's never-ending bloodlust. Alright, so before I get into the film itself, a little bit of background, as I sometimes do, because, Carl, how you pronounce his last name, one of the founders of Universal Pictures, was looking to adapt and acquire, some stuff that could be turned into movies and such. And, because, again, as I mentioned, Universal Pictures, dipping their toes a bit in some horror, again, with Hunchback of Notre Dame and Phantom of the Opera. And, because, one of their top actors doing horror stuff was, of course, the late legendary Lon Chaney. And I think by now, he would be referred to as Lon Chaney Sr., because we all know his son, Lon Chaney Jr., but Lon Chaney Sr., he was best known as the man with 1,000 faces. So, when it came to, adapting Bram Stoker's, I'm pretty sure, Bram Stoker, right, his novel of Dracula, turning that into a movie, Lon Chaney was in consideration for the titled role, but sadly and unfortunately, Lon Chaney Sr. passed away a year before the movie came out, and, a year when they started production. So now they can't get Lon Chaney, so what next? Well, they just so happen to bring in whom would, get the role of the titled character, Bela Lugosi. Yes, Hungarian, and he had already been playing the role of Dracula in the stage version of Dracula. Yeah. And, so he was hired and he was brought on board to play the titled character for this, and from there on, they would make movie history, without a doubt. So, now getting into the film itself, because, first off, it is obvious, because aside from the opening credits, because we get a sample of Swan Lake, which would also be used for The Mummy, and that bit of Swan Lake music does sound very, horrorish and creepy, and, that being the main theme music for some of the Universal monsters, no doubt about it. Because aside from Swan Lake, no music and score for Dracula, not at all, because, movies back then, especially in the early 1930s, and when they just began doing sound pictures, however, a couple of times, even on the Blu-ray copy I've got of the 1931 Dracula film, there is a music and score for the 1931 Dracula film. And let's not forget to mention, that goes for me, can't forget to mention the Spanish version of Dracula. Completely different actors playing these characters. And no Bela Lugosi, because, I just wanted to mention the Spanish version and get that out of the way, because, I'm sure some of you probably might have seen the Spanish version, so, and if any of you speak Spanish. So, anyways, with that out of the way, because, we get the introduction of one of the main characters, Renfield. He's a real estate agent. He's supposed to meet with Dracula in Transylvania and going to the Borgo Pass. The pass is the gateway to Count Dracula's realm in Bram Stoker's Dracula and such. Yeah, so that's the description of Borgo Pass. And the citizens of Transylvania, in this little village where Renfield approaches, they are aware and they're beyond terrified of Dracula, and they're warning and convincing Renfield not to go there. But Renfield, he's not scared, and he doesn't realize that, what Dracula really is like and such, and let alone, realizing that he's a legitimate vampire. And one of the Transylvania people giving Renfield a cross, for protection and for your mother's sake, as she says. And, well, Renfield proceeding on to the Borgo Pass and getting to, where Dracula's home is, and meeting up with another coach, because the coachman that's taking Renfield is to meet up with another coach that will go straight directly to the castle. And even the coachman is terrified too, and it doesn't take the coachman too long to, throw off Renfield's luggage and to just get the heck out of there. And sure enough, yeah, because, with the coachman's presence, and yeah, even before Renfield, met with the coachman, we already saw in Dracula's castle those in their coffins rising, and some animals, there's a possum, there's a bee, and there's even, a couple of armadillos that are there. And, of course, a few spiders. And, well, we even see Dracula's wives, 3 wives, basically, just like in the book and any other movie adaptation of Dracula. Yeah, so... And Dracula's wives are uncredited. Dracula's wives are played by... Gerland Devor. I'm not having trouble pronouncing her name. There's also Cornelia Thaw and Dorothy Tree. They play Dracula's 3 wives. And of course, we get our introduction. Doesn't take us that long to get our introduction of the titled character himself, Dracula, being played by the late legendary Bela Lugosi, as I just mentioned and talked about. Yeah. And his presence, his first presence, just fantastic. Fantastic. Bela Lugosi as Dracula, no matter what, from beginning to end, is no disappointment. Everything that he does as Dracula is so memorable and perfect. Absolutely perfect. Because again, there is no other Dracula like Bela Lugosi. So again, Renfield meeting with another coachman, which turns out to be Dracula, and just the creepiness, like shots with Bela as Dracula, the lighting just on his eyes, just fantastic. And, thus, Renfield on another coach, making his destination to Dracula's castle, and, there is one moment where we see that the coachman had turned into a bat, but little does Renfield realize. Making his way to the castle, the coachman, there's no sign of the coachman, and already the doors to Dracula's castle open, and that's when Renfield, meeting Dracula at the top of the stairs, and the first bit of dialogue that Dracula has, so good. I am Dracula, and I bid you welcome. And as they were, walking upstairs, they hear some howling outside, and Dracula's third bit of dialogue is, "Listen to them, children of the night. What music they make." That's my favorite. The first 2 are good, but it's especially this one. The dialogue that Bela delivers as Dracula, how he says his dialogue, just fantastic. It's so fantastic. Them making their way through the castle, and even Dracula at one point commenting on a huge spider and talking about spiders and such. And, Renfield is offered dinner, and Renfield, not wasting time, and same goes for Dracula, about, Dracula purchasing, something from London, which that, of course, being Carfax Abbey, which, it's basically like a castle and so on, and where Dracula will go live and so on. Because purchasing it and to use as his base of operations, but little does Renfield and anybody else over at London know what Dracula's going to do and so on. The first moments with Dracula and Renfield, so good. Those dramatic and creepy stares that Dracula gives to Renfield, even when at one point Renfield accidentally cut himself of the paperclip, and that got Dracula's attention because of blood, and Dracula slowly approaching him, but the necklace of the cross slipped out, and because Dracula, being a vampire, being terrified of crosses. And then Dracula offering him very old wine, and Renfield asking if he's going to drink it, and Dracula's response is, "I never drink wine." And then when it's bedtime and them saying goodnight to one another, and then Renfield seeing a huge bat outside of his window on the room that he's staying in. And by the way, because Dracula informed Renfield that, Dracula had chartered a ship and they will leave tomorrow evening. And, because after that, because again, Renfield's seen a huge bat outside, and it is Dracula. And, because some of the, because one of the, Transylvania people, warning Renfield about Count Dracula, and how, because, vampires can turn into bats or wolves. So, and we never see the transformation on screen. Just we cut, and then another jump cut, and we see that Dracula has turned into a bat. But that's, we only see him turn into a bat. We never see him or anybody else turn into a wolf, although we do hear the wolves howling, so yeah. So, yeah, again, Renfield's seen a giant bat, it's Dracula, and then Dracula's 3 wives approaching, and, this is after Renfield passed out somehow, because, at the sight of Dracula as a bat, and, again, Dracula's 3 wives approaching, Dracula telling them to back off, and, what happens next is, Dracula about to bite on Renfield, and Renfield is no more. He becomes a completely different person. He now serves under Dracula. And actually, fun fact, because Renfield in this, it was given to Renfield because originally, and as it wasn't say, Nosferatu and any other movie adaptations of the book, it was John Harker, meeting with Dracula and so on. And as we all know, in some other, movie adaptations of Dracula, of course, most notably Nosferatu, Dracula making his way to London, and at the very end of the movie, going for John's wife and such. But in this, it's a bit different, because, Renfield taking on the part that was originally John's, even though we still get John in this movie, there's still a difference. And I think in this, managed to work. And besides, as we all know, Renfield being the servant and such to Dracula, and, being a slave, so it only seemed fitting that just give the real estate agent part for Renfield. So yeah, not to mention, when the movie Renfield happened, because how it does the same kind of thing as the 1931 Dracula film. So Renfield now becoming a complete, delusional, crazy guy, now under the service of Dracula. He is Dracula, Dracula is his master, he is the slave to Dracula, and, the ship that they're charting on, because, they're on it by now, and making their way back to London, and Dracula bringing a couple of boxes with him, and Dracula's wives don't appear anymore in this movie. The only time that we see them is in Transylvania and in his castle. That's it. Well, so much for them. But, somehow in this, managed to work without them. Nice to see. Again, them making their way to London, and later that evening, and how close the boat is getting to London, Dracula rising from his coffin, and, because it's obvious what he's going to do, he's going to attack and kill those crewmen and the captain on the boat. And sure enough, he does. And Renfield, because Renfield being played by the late Dwight Fry. Yeah, I'm saying that right. 2 things about him. He is fantastic. Like from beginning to end. When Renfield starts off being a normal, innocent, man, but then when he was bitten by Dracula and now under his servants and such, he becomes delusional and so on. Dwight Fry, just fantastic at the role of Renfield. Just, what more do I have to say? And after Dracula, sadly for poor Dwight Fry, he would be typecast. Because, you know, of what he brought to the performance of Renfield, if you know that full stories, yeah, it's a shame. But I don't know, because, come on, you know, just, they didn't really, nobody had to really do that to poor Dwight Fry, because, I don't know. But anyways, so yeah, since we don't see it on screen, when the ship finally made its way to London, you wonder because how it managed to dock or just something after Dracula killed all those men on the boat. Well, the authorities arriving and they can see the horrific sights of the ship crewmen and the captain, and when they hear demonic laughter coming from below the ship, and they can of course see Renfield, and they can see that he's crazy and the look in his eyes, and well, a newspaper hits, you know, reporting the incident on the boat and the mentionings of Renfield, and after that, well, we see Dracula roaming through the streets of London at nighttime, of course, because as we all know, Dracula, he can only come out at nighttime, but when it's daytime, he has to stay in his coffin. So, very clever of Dracula to, in order to get to London, he had to, well, you know, chart a boat and luring Renfield because of, you know, where Dracula's going to stay at London. Just, yeah, Dracula, very smart at that. And in order to, you know, block himself from the sunlight and so on. So one of Dracula's first victims in London, as he's roaming the streets of London, blending in, and he's got a top hat and, you know, using a cane, you know, fancy cane and such, like those gentlemen that would use, you know. Again, one of his first victims is an innocent girl, which being a flower girl, and that's literally how she's credited. An uncredited flower girl being played by Bunny Betty. And, you know, just her just simply offering flowers, and when Dracula approaches her, staring at her creepily, and then, well, about to go for the kill, and we hear her screaming, and yeah, there's a crime scene that we see her dead body on the floor, and yeah, and just Dracula just walking and just casually, just like nothing happened, so, and then at one point, well, Dracula making his way to a theater, and we hear some music playing. Well, that's the second time, and the last time we hear some music in this movie. But in this case, it's coming from a theater, and well, that's when Dracula, he meets with Dr. Seward, yeah, being played by the late Herbert Bunston. Yeah, I think I'm saying it right. And there's also, well, one of the other main characters, and who would be a huge and, you know, main victim for Dracula, the Doctor's daughter, Mina, being played by the late Helen Chandler. There's also Mina's fiancé, John Harker, and John Harker being played by David Manners, and a friend of Mina's, Lucy, being played by Frances Dade, if I'm saying her last name right. Yeah, so he meets with the Doctor, and because of, you know, about Abby and so on, and Dracula meeting the others, and then, well, because, you know, when they learn, of course, that he comes from Transylvania, Lucy talking about, like, say, Transylvania, and mentioning about death and such, and this is a delight to Dracula, and how he talks about death and so on. Very delightful and such. And there's even one moment where Dracula, like, he hypnotized a maid, and just, yeah, giving her an assignment or whatever, but, yeah. So yeah, and, you know, Dracula still roaming around the streets of London, and after all that, well, and the first encounter that Mina, Lucy, and John had, one moment where Mina and Lucy, they're talking about, you know, Dracula and how weird he is, but they fancy him, like they think he's sexy and so on. And that reminds me, good thing I mentioned that, because, fun fact, and if any of you guys are familiar with the original novel / the book, maybe some of you would know this. In the original book / novel, Count Dracula, the way he's visioned, he is not sexy looking at all. He is an old man, he's got a long mustache, yeah, the total opposite image of this Dracula or any other Dracula, but yeah. So, but again, it's thanks to Bela Lugosi that he brought the superior look and how we vision the famous vampire Count Dracula. So, yeah. And also, another thing is, because of Bela Lugosi's accent and how what the voice that he brought to Count Dracula, that's how we, see and would do vampires with that accent and so on. And it's all thanks to the one and only Bela Lugosi. So again, Mina and Lucy talking about, Dracula. They think he's handsome and such. And, they say goodnight to one another. And, again, Dracula still roaming around the streets of London. And, he's clearly going to go for one of them. And he goes for Lucy first. Her window is open, and there's one shot where we see him as a bat, but then he transforms back into himself, and, him slowly and creepily approaching Lucy. And, not good. Not good, because, it's, because by this point she's probably dead, and, her body being examined by, some doctors, and one of them, and being one of the other main characters of this movie, Van Helsing, being played by the late Edward Van Sloan. I think I got his last name right. And by the way, if I remember correctly, because Edward Van Sloan, he too, like Bela Lugosi, had already doing something Dracula, the stage version of Dracula, already playing Van Helsing. So it's nice to see, and rightfully so, that, Universal Pictures, they brought two from the stage version of Dracula for their movie adaptation of Dracula. Nice to see. Edward Van Sloan, he does not disappoint as Van Helsing, and he too has got some great dialogue. And when it doesn't take him that long to discover and realize that the two bite marks on Lucy's neck, they're vampire, and as they also call vampire, Nosferatu. So the word Nosferatu in this movie and such, and another way for calling vampire. It doesn't take him too long to realize and identify that those two bite marks from Lucy, they're from a vampire. And, at least the other doctors and scientists, they don't immediately judge and think he's delusional, because Van Helsing is that great of a scientist, doctor, and so on. And, by proving so, to what Van Helsing says. I'll put that dialogue, in a text, because it's really good dialogue, what he says. And coming back to Renfield, because by this point, he was thrown into a mental hospital, and he had hoped that Dracula would have him find his own victims. Not people, but small things, bugs or something, because basically Renfield having a spider, a fat spider, and going after flies, and how upset he is when the guy who's looking after him, Martin, being played by the late Charles K. Gerard, I think I got that right, looking after Renfield, and he knows that Renfield is crazy, and because, when we first see Martin and when he threw that spider out the window and how upset Renfield was, and, at one point, Renfield, for the first time meeting with Van Helsing, and, of course, Van Helsing being well aware of Renfield and his status, and, if possibly, Renfield has something to do with what, Van Helsing is trying to discover and so on, because, of a vampire, if Renfield is linked to this supposed vampire that Van Helsing is on the case. And Van Helsing testing Renfield a little bit, even when whipping out a cross. Renfield is terrified by the sight of a cross. And some of the characters' comments on when someone is scared and startled by a cross, scared like a wild animal, or just something, And Renfield warning them from Martin, Van Helsing, and Dr. Seward about Mina, and mentioning that, whenever Renfield cries, it upsets Mina. And the question is, how does Renfield know about Mina? Well, I could think of a couple of guesses. I don't know, maybe they knew each other during childhood or school. I don't know, possibly, but I don't know. And if it is established in any other Dracula film, I mean, but just say, just mainly from the original novel, okay? So, I'm pretty sure. And if you guys know, let me know in the comments section. If any of you know this, how Renfield and Mina know each other in this particularly. And yeah, because, Renfield meeting with his master once again outside of his window in the mental hospital, and without dialogue, Renfield can understand, and, I guess he can hear in his head what Dracula is telling Renfield and what to do, and Renfield getting upset and telling him, just like, no, not Mina! Just like, he doesn't want to see his master going after poor, innocent Mina, But, well, Dracula is still gonna do it, either way. More on Mina and the other characters, because, because up to this now, where Dracula making his way to the home of Dr. Seward and going into Mina's bedroom, and one thing... Yeah, because I, of course, would like to point this out. Maybe you guys know this, and if any of you that have watched this might have spotted, whether if you've watched this the first time or, other times that you would watch this, the lamp on the nightstand, beside her bed and so on, there is a piece of cardboard taped to the lampshade. James Rolfe, aka the Angry Video Game Nerd, did an entire video covering this, and yeah, because even I was thinking of this, too. I think, yeah, because even before I watched the video of James talking about this, where, and even, say, from one of the writers from Dracula Dead Loving It, and someone else, because doing each people, doing commentaries on this, and their thoughts on the piece of cardboard taped to the lampshade, well, it's probably because that, nurses putting those there so, they can cover, one part of the lampshade, so the light beam doesn't hit on the patient's face, and, they're sitting there watching over the patient while the nurse is reading a book, and, the way I see it, kind of the same way too, but I guess I were to assume that Mina just wanted some light on while she was sleeping, but she covered it, so it didn't hit her face while she was sleeping. Yeah, so, yeah, that stuff makes sense, and, with what I've had to say, but yeah. But just overall, yeah, Dracula, well, again, very slowly and creepily making his way to Mina, and just that one shot, just, what I was doing, yeah. And, thus, Mina has been bitten by Dracula. Or was she? Because the next time we see her, right after that, she's okay. She's perfectly okay. And she's talking about, her having bad dreams and so on. And Van Helsing being there, and, she's got, a scarf around her neck. Van Helsing removing it, and he can see 2 bite marks. Dracula did bit her, but she's still alive. Well, probably because, I assume, Dracula wants her to be another one of his wives or something, having a victim be alive and be under his control, of course. So, yeah. And for Dr. Seward and John Harker, because, especially for John Harker, he's not really sure about this. It's not to say, he... At any point in the movie, he's like, you're crazy, there's no such thing as vampires. No, nothing like that. Because he's not really sure, and of course he's still terrified, and he wants to protect his fiancée. And, because, with what Mina explains to Van Helsing, and when at one point a maiden, informs Dr. Seward that Dracula has arrived, and he's right there, and this is the first time that Dracula and Van Helsing meet one another. And Dracula is familiar with Van Helsing, and, saying that he is known back in Transylvania, so yeah. Because Van Helsing getting suspicious with Dracula, even at one point, he can see a reflection in a mirror Dracula's not there. He's invisible. Yeah, Van Helsing can see that. And that's when he discovers, slowly but surely discovers, that Dracula is the vampire that he's been seeking and searching for. Well, Dracula interacting and chatting with Mina and the others, and, well, you know, Mina sharing Dracula the dreams that she's been having, and, well, Dracula stating that probably it's those stories, Transylvania stories that he had told Mina, and a bit of jealousy from John because of that, like, you know, but nothing, of course, nothing happened, but, well, little does he know, but because, what Dracula did to Mina, you know, biting her neck and so on. And at one point, Van Helsing, confronting Dracula, you know, the suspension is happening and just, well, he's going to show Dracula his reflection in the mirror, and by doing so, and, well, just, he slaps it out of his hand, and just terrified of mirrors, and he tells John and Dr. Seward that Van Helsing can explain this. And, you know, Dracula walking off, and, you know, saying to Van Helsing, "You're a very brave man, Van Helsing." You know, how he says it, just so good, so good. So yeah, and Van Helsing explaining to Seward and John Harker that, well, Count Dracula is a vampire, and, you know, throughout the rest of the film, just talking about, you know, that Dracula is our vampire, and, you know, and what had been happening recently from Lucy and to anybody else in the streets of London, and now with Mina, yeah. And there's even one moment where we see Mina going outside of the house and approaching Dracula, and Dracula covering her with his cape. And then Renfield pops up, because now being present in Dr. Seward's house, and, well, Renfield, you know, telling them more, and because of, you know, like, say, Dracula and stuff like that, but not saying his name, and, well, Renfield trying his best not to say anything, or else he'll get in trouble with his master, because, well, Dracula in bat form pops up, and Renfield, you know, being scared and just, "No, I wasn't going to tell them anything, master," and John just, you know, shooing away the bat, but little does he realize and know that that's Dracula in bat form. Even at one point, Van Helsing noticed and saw, well, yeah, because they saw that a wolf running, and, well, that was Dracula, because Van Helsing telling them that, you know, that vampires transforming into either bats or wolves. And Van Helsing is being on to Renfield and, you know, his connection with Dracula and such, and Renfield trying his best not to say anything, yeah. And, well, even at one point, one of the maids, because, yeah, the maids in Dracula, because the only one that's credited is Joanne Standing. The other maids, like, let me see, because, yeah, okay, the innkeeper's wife, there's a coach passenger, okay, well, apparently Joanne Standing is the only maid that's credited, so yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is her, because alerting Van Helsing, the doctor, and John that Mina, she thinks that Mina's dead outside, and they go after her, and then the maid coming face to face with Renfield, and just him going, and apparently this causes her to pass out, and Renfield on the floor, just, you know, crawling at the maid, like, what's he gonna do to the maid? I mean, we don't see, but then at one point, we apparently see Lucy. She's roaming around, and we hear a child crying, and this apparently got on the newspaper, and Martin is reading this about something that has to do with children, and they were promised some chocolates and stuff like that, but yeah. But anyway, so, you know, more that happens in Dr. Seward's house, and with poor Mina, well, because, you know, Van Helsing, you know, being precautious, and, you know, still trying to convince them, especially for John, on what's going on, and with Dracula, and, well, like, even at one point, Van Helsing gave one of the maids, you know, to give to Mina, which being, a Wolfbane, yeah, Renfield's Wolfbane, as a means of protection from vampires, yeah. So giving that to one of the maids, and to, you know, to have Mina wear it and such. And Mina being aware on what's going on with her, and even, like, trying to warn John, but, even though she loves him, she wants him to be safe and be protected. And as for John, well, he too wants to keep Mina safe and protect her. And he even at one point was planning for him and her to, to go away, just, to travel and such, but that was not happening. Like, Van Helsing and Dr. Seward, they weren't going to let that happen, because if by doing so, that would kill her. And other times that Dracula, creepily, I'm pretty sure I'm saying that right, popping up here and there, and just, a lot of suspense that's happening. And, even though there's no music in Dracula, this movie still managed to pull off the suspense and chills, the chilling moments. And, there were some pretty funny moments, for sure. Yeah. I mean, especially coming from, like, say, Renfield, Martin, even Van Helsing had a few funny moments, but yeah. Because one great moment when Van Helsing and Dracula, the next time they, come face to face with one another, because by this point, Van Helsing knows everything about Dracula and what's going on, and Dracula confronting Van Helsing, a standoff, and just talk. And even Dracula trying to lure Van Helsing, come here. But Van Helsing being too strong to be under Dracula's hypnosis, under his mind control, then Van Helsing about to do something, whip something out of his coat, and, Dracula thinks it's a wolfbane, but no, because, something far more than a wolfbane, and as Dracula approaches him, indeed, because it's a cross. So, of course, with anybody having a cross, they are safe and protected from not being in any danger or harm from a vampire, and Van Helsing being very thoughtful to protect himself with that. And for poor Mina, her being isolated, and with her wearing the wolfbane, well, even at one point, she did take off the wolfbane, because, while she was sleeping, because, she didn't like that on her. And even Dracula at one point staring outside of a window at a maid and, commanding her to do something. And, the climax is getting there. And by this point, the movie is almost done. And when I was watching this, at certain points I was like, oh my gosh, we're almost at the end. Like, what's going to happen and with the movie's ending? Especially, because this was the first time that I had watched Dracula, and I'm sure the same goes for you guys, the first time that some of you watched it. Well, because again, and to get there now, because, the climax happening, and how the movie does its climax, I should say. And, because at one point, Mina being awoken, and there was one interaction between John and Mina, and John, he was still determined to get her out of there. But even at one point, and before she went to bed, they were talking out on a balcony, and, at one point, the giant bat shows up, and John trying to scare it away, but, he doesn't realize still that it's Dracula. And Mina interacting with the bat, with Dracula in bat form, and the last thing she says is, I will. And John is puzzled, like, why did you say I will? Who were you talking to? And her pretending to say that she wasn't talking to anybody. And, Mina was about to bite on John's neck, and Van Helsing and Dr. Seward, they were quick to help and stop Mina, of course, using the cross. Man, just so good. Just so good. How good this movie is, and but okay, so the climax, because, let's get to the climax still, because, where at one point, Mina walking outside late at night and with Dracula behind her, and, because going to, where Dracula had been staying, in Carfax Abbey, using the base, again, for operations, and, staying in his coffin, in his coffin when the sun is out, and when the sun is down, it's nighttime, So making their way there, while Renfield, him showing up there too, And even like, speaking of Renfield, because still, with Martin, who was looking after Renfield, because one moment where Martin and one of the maids, they're outside of the house, and Martin with a shotgun trying to shoot down Dracula in bat form, and just, yeah. And Martin commenting, saying that, from Van Helsing and the others, that they're crazy, and, him interacting with the maid, and just, it's pretty funny. Oh, Martin. But yeah, again, with the climax and with Dracula and Mina making their way into Carfax Abbey, and with Renfield showing up, meeting with his master once again, Van Helsing and John, they followed Renfield and also where Mina and Dracula were going. And when they can see Mina, John shouting for Mina, and, Dracula and Renfield can see that they're there, and Renfield assuring his master that, I didn't know that they followed me, I assure you. And he was about to walk off, and the last line that Dracula has is, "Wait!" and just having Renfield to halt. And, slowly approaching Renfield, going down the stairs, and Renfield just begging his master, "Punish me, torture me, don't kill me, I can't die with all those blah, blah, blah." He's getting scared, and, Dracula grabbing him by the throat and such, and we don't see it, but, we can see that Renfield tumbles down the stairs, and, again, we don't see it on screen, but basically, Dracula killed his slave, which, of course, being Renfield. So that's the end of Renfield right there. And then Dracula picking up and carrying Mina, running away / fleeing from Van Helsing and John, making their way further into Carfax Abbey, and where Dracula had been hiding and such, and where the coffins are. And when they find and locate Dracula and Mina, 2 coffins are there. Dracula is in his coffin. They open it, and, basically, what they have to do is, and according to Van Helsing, put a, stack, I think that's how they said it, stack, through, in the heart of Dracula to kill him once and for all. And they might have to do it to poor Mina. But thankfully, and when they opened the coffin that, Dracula put her in, she's not there. Where is she? And, because John going after and locating and finding Mina wherever she is. And, rightfully so, Van Helsing being the one to kill and murder Dracula, putting the stack in Dracula's heart, and, we don't see it on screen, but off screen, and when we cut to John, he can hear this, the stack and what the Van Helsing is doing, and hearing the moaning and groaning sounds of Dracula as he's being killed. Oh, so good. A great villain death right there, even though we don't see it on screen. And, how this movie was done, and just not what you would expect as of today, but yeah. And we do see Mina, and we can see that, as we hear the death sounds of Dracula as he's being murdered, Mina starts to get a little doozy and such. I can tell, of course, that she's she's no longer under the control and such of Dracula. The curse is broken for poor Mina. And, she does scream, and John finding her, and, Mina, after Dracula's killed, she's perfectly okay now. Everything's good now, and Van Helsing informing both John and Mina that Count Dracula is dead forever, and Van Helsing telling them to get out of there, and, the sun is about to rise, and Mina asking Van Helsing if he's gonna join with them, and, and him saying, no, not yet, no, not right now, just, he'll catch up, basically. And the last shot we see is John and Mina walking up the stairs, and the end, a Universal picture film, and yeah, and that's how the movie ends. And, again, when this movie was done, and how the movie was filmed, and, from the death of the main antagonist, and how the movie ends, and no end credits, yeah, still great, just everything about Dracula, from 1931, no disappointment. Not a disappointment at all. 1931's Dracula, again, it's a fantastic masterpiece of a film, and from the horror genre, just what more do I have to say? The story is fantastic. The cast of characters, the performances of, the late legendary Bela Lugosi as the titled character, Edward Van Salone as Van Helsing, Helen Chandler as Mina, David Manners as John Harker, Dwight Fry as Renfield, Herbert Bunsen as Dr. Seward, and all the other cast members of the 1931 Dracula film, just fantastic. And the film's director, the late Todd Browning, did a fantastic job as well. Also, Carl Fruand, if I'm even saying his last name right, he also was one of the other directors as well, co-directors basically. And the fact that this movie has no music and score, just, with only Swan Lake and the music that we hear at that theater, in that sequence where Dracula goes to the theater, the funny and chilling moments, the suspension, the way the film was shot and with its cinematography, the effects, and with Dracula, and just, no reflection in his mirror, and in bat form, the creepy sounds, and just, the creepy shots of Dracula, especially up close, and with great dialogue. Just, everything about 1931's Dracula is no disappointment. It is a perfect, fantastic film. And I'm giving Dracula, well, it's obvious, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for 1931's Dracula. And what about you guys? What did you think of the 1931 Dracula film itself? Any of you that watched this the first time, and any of you that are into the classic Universal monster stuff, did you really enjoy this as I did? And just, for everybody else, is this your favorite movie adaptation of Dracula, and Bela Lugosi being your favorite Dracula? I mean, how can you not? Just, and with the chilling moments and some funny moments here and there, and with, this movie having no music, only having Swan Lake, the way the movie was shot, just, overall, what did you think of Dracula from 1931 itself, and, with what I've had to say, my review, and what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the 1931 Dracula film. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And, well, reviewing Halloweenish films has just begun. Stay tuned, because later tonight, reviewing the next classic Universal monster film, which this coming out the same year as Dracula, and, following Dracula. Well, it's obvious, and if you know what came out, after Dracula, it's alive! It's alive! Stay tuned for that. Take care, and peace out. Children of the night, what music they make.